welcome to the D3D4 Football Podcast with me, your host, James Richards. Yes, hello everyone, welcome back to the new season, another season of D3D4 Football. Really glad to be back actually and cover some real football matches for a change. I know we've had the cup games, but they just felt a little bit like glorified friendlies really. A lot of teams use them as their pre-season, but the real action has started this weekend with League 1 and 2 returning. I'm joined by my co-host Ed Walker. Ed, welcome back for another season.
Oh, it's so great to be back, isn't it? If you're a Championship or Premier League fan, the season finished about 2 days ago, but for the rest of us, it's been months, and it's so good to be finally back in action again.
It is indeed, and we're also joined by my favourite EFL pundit, a man who played for multiple teams, including Swindon Town, but we never hold that against him. It is Sam Parkin. Sam, welcome back to the podcast.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, and happy new season.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're looking forward to going through it. Our usual co-host Chris he's not with us today. He and his brother Matt are doing the 127-mile walk for the Roy Castle Lung Cancer Charity. Please check out his Twitter feed and donate whatever you can. It's a great cause, and I wish him and his feet well on that walk. It's the Leeds-Liverpool Canal, so good luck, mate, if you're listening. And happy birthday, Ed and Luke. Luke Saunders, our original co-host, it's his birthday today, and it coincidentally, Ed, it's yours as well, isn't it?
Yep, 23 today, or as I'm thinking about it, 7 years off 30.
Oh, mate, don't start thinking like that.
Oh, it's starting to... No, we'll see how it goes there.
You wait until your knees start to creak. Then you start to worry about age.
Oh, boy.
23, dear. He's a kid still, isn't he, Sam?
Oh, my goodness. Many happy returns, Ed. And
Thank you.
I hope we're not keeping you out of the pub, mate.
The pubs around here are open at the minute, to be honest, but we'll see.
There's always a Wetherspoons.
That's true.
There is, isn't there? Indeed. Right, let's jump in. It's so much to go through. We will try and cover as much as we can. Obviously, in the time limit, we will probably not be able to go in huge detail about all your clubs, but I hope you enjoy and join us for the majority of the campaign. And I say, patrons, guys, thank you so much for your continued support. Adam Blair is the latest to join our team of patrons, so really big shout out to you, Adam, and thank you to all of you who contribute to help keep this podcast going. This year, of course, we are trying to stay away from certain sponsors. We want to try and keep this podcast for the fans without any sort of, extra additions or add-ons. We're going to try and keep it purely on the football, and hope we can continue to do that, and with your support we will indeed endeavour to do it. Right, League 1. Let's start in League 1, guys. A new season in the third tier.
League 1.
And we'll start at Accrington, because you can't hate this club. I mean, I think Luton fans might disagree, but, you can't really. They are a team that throw up surprise after surprise. They punch above their weight. They run superbly. They sign players out of non-league who seem to flourish under them. This season, it's more about the loanees they've brought in. Ed, it was... Well, we joked about this, didn't we, before the pod, that, Accrington being Accrington, and you said Peterborough being Peterborough. I mean, fantastic result, though, for Aki. 2-0. Pretty good goals as well, let's be honest. Both sublime finishes and, beating one of the favourites already.
It's just been a really good result. I think the pick of the two goals to me was that the first one, which came from Dion Charles. The technique on that volley, absolutely sublime, just to hit it full on the volley from that distance out and put it in. And Accrington, we know they're a solid side at this level, and even after, recently, I can't remember if it was in the last week, that Callum Johnson went to Portsmouth, which is obviously a great sign to Portsmouth, but it's a big loss for Accrington. But even still, they've got so much quality. Ross Sykes in defence, I think, is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, he's a monster of a defender,
He's an absolute monster of a centre-back, and they've still got people like Joe Pritchard, Sean McConville. This, I can never get his name right, Tariq Uwakwe, the Chelsea loanee.
Uwakwe, yeah. Lovely finish.
He's had a sublime week, hasn't he? I think it's 4 goals across these last 2 games he's been playing, so what an introduction to him. And then you've still got people like Colby Bishop, who can play up top. Ryan Cassidy's on loan from Watford. It's just such a solid outfit.
I thought Matt Butcher looked quite good, and I have to be honest, I don't know if you guys know much about him, but he's not a player that was really on my radar at all. I don't tend to follow sort of the Premier League hugely, and obviously this guy playing in the reserves down at Bournemouth. very unlucky not to give them a lead. But a crisp shot, was it saved or did it hit the post? I can't remember, but he looked quite decent as well.
He did, yeah. And it might seem as a surprise result to a lot of people, but to be honest, having seen Accrington quite a lot, you're not really that surprised. I was watching them in the League Cup game against Bolton last week, where they had quite a lot of people out, but even then, they look like a team that are on their way to something really good with this back three system. So it could be a fun season for them.
Could be. Sam, your take on Peterborough, because there's going to be a lot of pressure on them to go up this year. Heavy favourites in many of our eyes because they've kept a stable squad and they've got a lot of firepower. Even if they had to sell Ivan Toney, that was kind of inevitable. Sammy Smollett's coming back. He's a class act at this level, but they'll be disappointed to come away without a point on the opening day.
They will be, but I always say it. Accrington Stanley, it may be a cliche, but it's such a difficult place to go. Everything's on top of you there, even without the supporters. Obviously, it's not the most vociferous of home supports, although the Accrington Ultras, or whatever you call it, do create a bit of an atmosphere behind one goal. But even the manager, I remember playing up there, John Coleman, can be quite persistent with the referees, and I remember him, really being vocal on the touchline, and the players play in that mould as well. And Ed spoke about a new system as well, back three. I've noticed they've gone to Mark Hughes, former teammate of mine, still marshalling that back three. So always a tough game, especially first game of the season when there's so many variables and unknowns, and people haven't really had a great look at each other because of the quick turnaround. But no, I really like Peterborough's business. I think they're going to be very strong. I think they're 100% automatic contenders, and I think Clark Harris is nearly as good as you can get in terms of a Tony replacement. So some great business elsewhere. I think Hamilton was very good for me in flashes for Southend. I think he's a good capture, and just shows you that the way that they go about their recruitment is second to none. So completely understand why they're favourites, and we shouldn't read too much into yesterday's result.
I completely agree. First games of the season, don't read too much into them, because my team, Oxford, we're just warming up, really. You speak of good recruitment. I mean, I'm very hot on Michael Appleton after what he did at Oxford, and he's doing it again at Lincoln. No surprise whatsoever to me that we lost this one. I was very keen to see how he would set them up, Michael Appleton, and he set them up with pretty much a 4-3-3. Scully, a player that I think will do really well this season, with Harry Anderson on the other side supporting Tom Hopper. They've got pace, they've got strength, they defended brilliantly, they've got an excellent goalkeeper. And I know the headlines the goalkeepers always seem to get is for the saves that they make, and obviously that's fine. He made a double save, that will be the headline. But actually, if you watch the game, he commanded his box throughout the 90 minutes superbly, did Palmer. And I think he could possibly be one of the best goalkeepers at this level. He was last season in Division 4 in League 2. Most clean sheets, I think, at that level last year, and he looks to be one of the best signings they can make. Jackson and Monsma, a very solid and dependable centre-back pairing they look to be. Sean, I think it's Rohan, they probably pronounce it, the left-back. He's one of their young players who stands out a mile. And I think am I right, guys, in thinking he's 17, is that right?
Yes, he is 17. 2003 he was born.
Oh, that makes me feel terrible.
Ridiculous.
He had a tremendous game, as did Aoma on the other side. So, I mean, this is a team that will, I think, do far better than we predicted. I mean, well, me, Ed, I was hot on them in our sort of discussion about where we would put them in our predictions. You and Chris, not so much. But I
wasn't that big, and then they brought in Alex Palmer and Caleb Morton, and I started to see what you were on about, and I do kind of get what you mean now, so maybe that's one we might regret when we look back. Yeah. We'll see though. Still
one game. But I mean, it was an impressive performance. Oxford, we are a good side. Obviously, Josh Ruffles going off injured leaves us a bit of a conundrum about what we're going to do at left back going forward for the rest of the season. Hopefully, it's only a short-term shoulder injury. He fell awkwardly after a challenge with Aoma, so a bit worried there. But we are going to hopefully bring in a left winger, and Sam Winnell will come into this side. That was a great signing for us. But I have no complaints about the result. I think Lincoln thoroughly deserved it, and I can't really begrudge Lincoln doing well, because they've got a manager that Oxford fans hugely respect. They're a side that do things the right way, and I wish them all luck for the season. A great start for them. Sam, we're going to go to Sunderland and have a look at them now, because a 1-1 draw They played well against Hull in the Cup, and they actually were the better team here, let's be honest. Bristol Rovers scored from a fortuitous penalty. I mean, it's definitely a penalty. I'm not saying it was lucky, but in terms of goalkeeper error, should have done better, really, their Burge. And no mistake from the spot from Leahy, great penalty. And then they sort of sat back, and it was up to Sunderland to break them down. What do you think of Sunderland? They'll come into this expecting again. I think bookmakers make them favourites every year, but it's going to be a tough division for them yet again.
Yeah, I mean, I do carry some optimism still. I just thought there was enough in what Parkinson did last year in terms of nailing down a system, which he looks like he's going to persist with. I think there's a little bit of variety at the top of the pitch in that Maguire can potentially play as that one behind the two. I know that's something they've looked at in pre-season. So, but again, Chris Maguire was bailing them out. And for me, it's still about, can Will Grigg rediscover what he once had? You have to play. We said it so often last season, but for some players, you have to play to their strengths. I spoke about it a lot yesterday, actually, with Paul Cook off air on Quest, and someone like Owen Doyle. You look how Richie Wellens got the best out of him at Swindon last year. The team was built to create him chances. Well, if Will Grigg's in the side, I'm afraid you have to do that. You have to keep him in the confines of the 18-yard box, and you have to work chances, cutbacks, whatever it may be, to get the best out of him. So I think that's a big factor. I like Josh Scowen. I was surprised that he wasn't in the lineup yesterday, and I'm not going to have a go at pronouncing it, but I thought that the Kosovan, I believe he is left-sided centre-half, would have played as well, and Flanagan got the nod there. So that was interesting, because I felt that it looked like the balance was good in the previous games. And yesterday it was a really bad goalkeeping error that led to the Bristol Rovers goal. So not the ideal start, but something within me still says that Phil Parkinson could get it right this year. And out of all the kind of superpowers, if I can call them that, they would be the ones that I'd still have my last pound on over Ipswich, Portsmouth, the clubs who have got the real resources.
Indeed, yeah, indeed. I mean, obviously, interesting to see if they don't get out of this division in the next year or so, how the salary cap, when their current contracts start to expire, will affect them. That is going to be the one thing that they'll be desperate to sort of do, get promoted before that salary cap really hits. Portsmouth, another big hitter. Now, Sam, Portsmouth fans not sold on Kenny Jackett, and 0-0 with Shrewsbury yesterday, and I think Shrewsbury were very pleased with their performance, created a number of opportunities, probably feel they should have won this, or could have won this. They had some nice chances. I think Michael Pike brought one of the best saves you'll see out of the Portsmouth keeper. But I don't know. Kenny Jackett's not obviously got a huge amount of support with Pompey fans. Something I personally disagree with a bit. I think he's a good manager. What are your thoughts on all this? Because it's going to wrangle on as long as Portsmouth don't get results.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it last year, and that home record was so good. I felt the Portsmouth supporters' wrath when I suggested the early part of the season that maybe they were on occasion set up to do more damage and be a little bit more entertaining away from home, having not done my homework at that point. I think it was only about 4 or 5 games in, but yeah, they came after me, so I have to be a little bit more selective what I say about them. But I feel their concern, because it's just never particularly entertaining, even if they do manage to pick up the 3 points, especially at Fratton Park. I just look at the midfield and the number 10, and it seems like we've been talking about this for the best part of last season. He just prefers to have a little bit of a worker in that role at 10, along with 2 holding players. And I just think there's license to be a little bit more offensive, especially at home. Naylor, Morris, Evans, it's just all a little bit samey for me. And I thought there was probably an opportunity. I know the purse strings are probably tight, but just to go and get a bit more offensive talent, especially with Hawkins moving on. Doesn't like really popping Harness in there, or I know we had a spell last year where Marquis was playing, but I just feel that shows his negativity at times. And having lost Burgess, who I felt was a Rolls Royce really for them defensively, they're probably not going to be as strong in that department this year. And I think there's a few more selection headaches defensively than there was last year. It pretty much picked itself, and they were very good in that aspect. So, yeah, I'm surprised he's still in the job, but I wouldn't be surprised again if Kenny Jackett got them promoted this year. So it's a really difficult one, but one that you expect will wrangle on, especially considering the way they started yesterday. Yeah,
as I say, I think if they don't get results, this will continue to be a thing at Fratton Park. Fastest goal of the day. No one probably expected it to come from AFC Wimbledon, but it did, Ed. A 2-2 draw in quite an entertaining game. Northampton coming back twice to secure a point. What were your thoughts on this one? Because we think both of these sides potentially will struggle. Anything from that opening game that would lead you to think otherwise?
Otherwise, no. I think if you're a Northampton fan, could see, what was it, 22 seconds?
Yeah, crazy.
I know there were some issues with iFollow yesterday. I don't know if the Northampton fans might have actually missed that goal with how the way things were going there. But no, it's really difficult to judge after one game. But I think we talked pre-season about how Northampton are basically going to this new campaign with a pretty much new back line. Losing good, they've lost Wharton, Turnbull's gone to Salford, Cornell's now at Ipswich. You've still got Steve Arnold, but then you've got people like Fraser Horsfall in front, and we're a bit doubtful about whether they're going to handle this level. And a game against AFC Wimbledon isn't really going to demonstrate whether they're that level or not. So you look at more of their upcoming games. I think if I look at their upcoming fixtures, they've got games against Shrewsbury, Hull and Bristol Rovers coming up, and that would be a much better indication of whether Northampton are going to manage this step up to the next division or not.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see how they do cope. Good result for FC Wimbledon, though, and I thought some of their players did well. Nesta Guinness-Walker getting on the score sheet.
Mm-hmm.
I think, is it Longman, the midfielder, who put in that sublime cross, which sort of caused problems to get this? I think it was the second goal. I might be wrong, but he looked good. And I like the way Wimbledon do seem to be able to produce enough good quality players or sign enough good quality players to, survive at a level at the moment, which. It's commendable for them to do so. I saw some pictures, actually. I did retweet them of their new stadium. It's looking lovely. I can't wait to see that film.
One thing I will say about Northampton as well, that Warburton free kick was lovely. That was very good.
It was good technique. I wonder, if you look at the keeper, do you think he should have... It was kind of quite central when it hit the back of the net. I did have question marks over his positioning slightly.
I just wonder if he wasn't maybe expecting it. But Matt Warburton was it wasn't a regular starter last season ahead of people like Lyons and Watson in midfield, and hopefully Warburton now might get the chance to feature a bit further forward, so we could see him in amongst the goals this season for them, especially with Dane Oliver now gone.
I hope so. He's quite technically... I think League One might suit him better actually than League Two, personally. We'll see. We will see. Hull City, we had no idea what to expect from them, and they produced, Sam, a really good performance away at Gillingham, which is not an easy place to go.
No, I said it last night on the TV. I didn't realise exactly how amazing Gillingham have been at the back end of last season. I think they lost actually the penultimate game at Priestfield to AFC Wimbledon, but other than that, the run-in, they were sensational. So on the face of it, a team coming down with the mental scars that Hull surely have got within that squad, I think that's a real eye-catching result. And when you look at the 11 that they were able to put out yesterday with a couple of really intelligent additions from Grant McCann, they will be strong. Obviously, a lot boils down to injuries, etc. But I've seen a bit of Greg Dougherty, if you remember him in League One previously. Shrewsbury,
great player.
Coasted. I've seen a little bit of him at Rangers, covered a few games in, I think it was their Europa campaign last year. And technically, he's a very good player. So he should slot in no problem at all. Lewis Potter, the young kid, I think is held in high esteem. Hasn't really got the goal return yet, maybe to match his ability, but that'll do him the world of good. So I think there's a really good balance there. There's younger players that are going to be afforded an opportunity at the lower level, which invariably happens with a relegation. And then you've got some decent experience and quality like Wilkes and Honeyman. Again, it's the people that have done it over time. So yeah, if he can keep them mentally right, if he's got them mentally right, having refreshed the squad, that's a great start. You could see that confidence, having scored 3 minutes into the new season, that just eradicates some of that pain from last year, which was horrible to watch from the outside. I don't know about you guys, but we all knew what was going to happen. You let your two talisman go at that stage of the season, and it must have been people that don't know the game properly. People that are looking in and thinking about finances and thinking, we've accumulated enough points, we'll be all right. Doesn't work like that. And I think they lost 16 of the last 20 games. So they were left the owners I'm talking about, with real egg on their faces, and they have to take an enormous amount of the. They have to take it basically on the chin that it was their fault for allowing that to happen. That leaves Grant McCann with a tough challenge of getting them back in the Championship this season. If
they can get a good start though, like you say, with a good squad of a good squad, and not too bad depth either. It's not, compared to some of these squads at this level, it's a pretty good squad. Then yeah, you're right. This momentum can start them off. Gillingham, Ed, they'll be disappointed, won't they, to lose at home in the first game of the season. They were hoping for improvement, but they didn't really get going. I think they'll be disappointed with the goals they conceded as well. Look a little bit weak defensively, and maybe that's a learning curve for young Zach Medley, who's coming on loan from Arsenal.
Yeah, definitely. I remember talking pre-season. We weren't quite sure. I think we had Gillingham to have a better season whole, just because we worried about the momentum that was carrying through at Hull City with all the changes. But this was a really good result for them. And Gillingham, it is a bit disappointing start, but you look at what they brought in this season. There's no reason why they can't, over the course of the whole campaign, have a really strong one. Certainly.
Indeed. Blackpool, whole changes in that squad. Loads of players in attacking positions to look, to think there's going to be a good amount of goals in them this season. They were actually held to a 1-0 defeat. Plymouth beat them 1-0 at home park. Plymouth look like they'll be a good team at this level this season under Ryan Lowe. We all know what Ryan Lowe is as a manager. Very attack-minded, plays a lovely fluid system, and got the 1-0 win. I think he'll be delighted with that, to be honest. And Jeff Cott, your favourite Ed scoring.
I love it.
Oh, it's great to see.
Yeah, I've got to say as well, one thing as well that might not get noticed, Michael Cooper in goal. They had Alex Palmer last year, who was fantastic, and he's moved on. And they brought in, who was the guy who came back? What was his name? The keeper who's come back in, the other keeper. They got Michael Cooper, and then it was Luke McCormick. Luke McCormick, yeah. That was it, yeah. But they're going with Michael Cooper, who's had the number one last season, which was rating the potential, and I've got to say, he was fantastic yesterday. Big part of the reason they got those 3 points, and he's quite inexperienced, but in terms of a first League One game, I think it is to him, that's a great start, and it's encouraging signs to see.
Indeed. If you can hear a noise in the background, I think one of my neighbours is doing some motorbike maintenance, which is very handy when you're trying to record a podcast. But no, I'm pleased to see Plymouth get the win. I think Blackpool, they look like, well, we know they're a top-heavy squad. They may, I think, get a couple more defensive recruitments in before the window closes, but not too shabby performance despite the defeat. Swindon, a 3-1 win over Rochdale. We know Rochdale will probably struggle. We weren't sure how Swindon would cope after losing some of their big goal getters, but Chris is big fan of Richie Wellens' ball. I think he plays lovely football. He's got a good style. The Smiths in that squad on the score sheet and looking good. Tyler Smith, I think, will be a top player at this level this season, on loan from Sheffield United. Sam, your team, your ex-team, they will be very, very pleased to get off to such a positive start.
Yeah, they'll be thrilled. I think it's not been plain sailing this pre-season. I think 4 centre-halves missing yesterday and only 5 players on the bench. I think Richie came out after the game and said it wasn't a sign to Mr. Lee Power to put his hand in his pocket. But yeah, you normally look at that and think that the manager's probably wanting some new players. So we will see. Odemeo, the centre-half, who was quite rusty against Charlton in the cup game, did a lot better yesterday. So he helped. And Friars seems to be pretty versatile and cool customer. Even when he plays at centre-half, he's obviously a left-back by trade. So that passed pretty comfortably, but I think it's probably helped that the opposition was Rochdale yesterday. And when Wellens sets his team up to press so aggressively, get after the opposition, obviously that plays into Swindon's hands a little bit yesterday, because Rochdale like to try and play out. But I look at the side now. I think there's real creativity. I think Jayasimi's a great capture on a free transfer. He's one for me at 24 who could potentially go on again. And obviously we all would have seen Johnny Smith last year.
Yeah, we love Johnny Smith on this pod.
Yeah, he was their best player, wasn't he? So I'm a little bit surprised.
Miles better than the rest, yeah.
I mean, Bristol City seem to have so many kids, but they don't give them that opportunity. It's very peculiar. Yeah, so I'm a bit surprised they allowed him to go to their near neighbours. But he'll be fantastic. And just a note on Michael Dougherty. I don't know if you saw the news last night that he's left the club.
Oh, I didn't see that. No.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
for personal reasons. So obviously I know Michael well, and he's become he's a bit of a talisman for Swindon, and he's done brilliantly. So I wish him well. Lovely lad and a beautiful player for that level, actually. You have to find a role for him within quite a hard-working team at the moment at Swindon. What I mean is he doesn't really have that legs that Richie Wellens likes, but he hasn't half got quality on the ball. And I just wanted to wish him well, because he's been a great asset to Swindon and a great professional over the last few seasons.
Indeed, echo that. Wish him well. Hopefully everything is good with him, and whatever the reason he's left is not serious. Let's hope. Ed, if you wanted to define League One, you'd say Fleetwood home win and John Joe O'Toole red card, and there we go. It happened yesterday on the Fylde Coast, a 2-1 defeat for your team. Let us know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I had a watch of it. My initial thought at full time was disappointment, because it was by such a narrow margin. But now that I look back on the game, I can't have any complaints with Fleetwood winning that. And when you watch them live, you realise why they're tipped to do so well, because they've just got a bit of everything about them. They've got people like Whelan and Coots who can just control the midfield with the technique they've got. Paddy Madden's moving off the ball is stupidly good. It's really difficult to keep with him. Ched Evans, I don't know how he does it, because he's not exactly someone who's 6'5" or 6'6", but he wins every single header, no matter who he's against. That's fantastic. Stubbs and Hill were brilliant at the back. They provided such a threat from set pieces, which is where most of Fleetwood's chances came from yesterday. And Burton never really dealt with any of them. The 2 goals came from set pieces that they failed to clear. They're putting Wes Burns at right back. That's how good this team is. They're putting a quality winger out there. You've got Callum Camps who's coming as well.
He'll be a good player, won't he, this season?
He'll be great. And then when Fleetwood are out of possession, they don't give you a second. They hassle you. I think the word would be nasty. They don't give you a second. They're so relentless with their press. And then when you get into the latter stages of the game and there isn't a 2-1 like it was there, they see it out. They do run the clock down, but I'm not a particular fan of the tactics that they use, but it works and it does the job. And it's not the first team they're going to be at home this season, certainly. I think they're going to have a very good season. Great squad.
Now, I'll pass you a virtual handkerchief here. Scott Frazier ending up at MK Dons. That was a bit of a shock for all of us, I think.
Yeah, look, Scott Frazier, he'd been away for months and there was all the links. I'd love to have seen him get a crack at the Championship, because I think he'd shown over the last couple of seasons that he deserves the chance. He's gone to MK. It's a absolutely class signing for them, and he'll show it. I do wonder if the salary cap's played a bit of a part in that he looked like he was heading to Sunderland for ages and then didn't. So I wonder if the salary cap has maybe allowed MK to get a better offer in there rather than Sunderland to help him go. But he'll be great there. But I must say, James, going back to Fleetwood, I'm fed up with that goal music now as well. I'm with you on that.
Oh yeah, that needs to
be. That sea shanty can go. I'm fed up with it now. I'm glad we're done with Fleetwood away. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm fed up with that goal music.
Yeah, I think everyone else in the division's got that to look forward to.
I can't wait.
Yeah, we'll get a petition about that. Actually, I think was it 100,000 signatures, and the government have to take it seriously.
I think so. We can do that. I reckon.
That's easy. I think if people have heard it and played Fleetwood, they'll be delighted to get rid of it's like pugwash, isn't it?
Oh, it's pathetic.
Oh, horrible. Anyway, so yeah, MK Dons, they drew 1-1 with Doncaster. That's actually quite a good result, I think, for MK Dons opening day away from home. They don't win away from home. They haven't won in ages away from home, but it's not easy opening day at Doncaster, so they'll definitely be happy with that. I think Doncaster will prove a better team than many expect across the season. I'm sure they're not done with their business yet. Their squad seems just a little bit light in some areas.
I do like that Maja Gomez in midfield. He does look quite good. He's been amongst the goals as well recently as well. And then they brought in Tyrese John Jules, who I can remember watching quite a few years ago when the England under-17s were playing in the European Championships in England. And he looks quite good, so he's definitely one to keep an eye on as well. Was it Tyler Smith they had last year, or was it 2 years ago?
Oh, I can't. Tyler Smith. Got me there. I'm not sure when.
I think it was a couple of years ago, but he could be a bit like that, one of these young players who are quite impressive. And then obviously still got Okenabiri as well, so it's a decent pair of strikers, I think.
Yeah, and a 1-1 draw, maybe a fair result. But I give MK Dons credit for that, because I think really, it's a difficult opening game of the season. They've lost a couple of key players, and they go there and they get a good point.
Lovely goal from Cargill as well.
It was, wasn't it? It's a lovely move. Very calm finish. Very calm. Mm-hmm. Sam, we come to you for the last game of League One, with Crewe losing at home to Charlton. Probably the only difference between these two sides on the day was just the clinical edge that Charlton found in the opposition penalty area, because I think it was a fairly even game. But unfortunately, still a lot of questions need to be answered about what's happening off the field with Charlton.
Yeah, I don't know if I've told you, but Johnny Jackson's one of my big mates, so I had him on the phone last week for half an hour, and I came away baffled by it all, to be honest. I think I was more confused after the conversation than before I went into it. But
very strange, isn't it?
But basically, the long and short of it is they don't really have the capacity at the moment in terms of the squad size to bring any players in. It's kind of, they have to get players out to be able to get anyone in. I don't know if you know this, but 23-man squad is the limit at this level. And Johnny explained to me that anyone at the club that's played 1 minute of football for the senior side counts towards that 23. So if you think of the opportunities that have been afforded to younger players over the last couple of years at Charlton because of the situation, some of these players, I wouldn't say have been cast aside, but some of these players aren't good enough for first team football, yet they count towards that squad. So they've got under 23 players that unfortunately might not ever kick a ball again for Charlton, but they count towards that 23. So it's very difficult for them to get anyone in at the moment. They managed to get Levitt in from Manchester United, who did very well for Wales the other day in the senior side. He'll be a good signing. And like Hull City, despite all I've just said, when you look at that squad from yesterday, that team from yesterday, it's not a bad League One side. I think it's probably 3 or 4 players short of being able to challenge for promotion. So whether that will happen is a big question. But I just look at a couple of areas. Got a 17-year-old playing at right back, Barker, who is in the side for the reasons that I've just explained. He doesn't actually count towards that 23-man squad because he's a 17-year-old scholar. And so that's the reason that he's getting a game, which is incredible considering the way he's adapted to first team football. George Lapsley's another one who kind of is a bit of a jack of all trades, but I think they'd probably ultimately need an upgrade in midfield there. And Macaulay Bonne is going to take the load really this year in terms of goal scoring. I think Anike as well can chip in, but Bonne was much improved last week at Swindon. I thought he had a really good game and gave the centre-half the game. So yesterday, despite everything I've just said and the doom and gloom around the club, it's a brilliant win for them. And they'll be thrilled this morning like you are after every victory. But the bigger picture is they need this takeover to happen, and it's just so messy because there's an injunction in place at the moment. It's not going to be clear and clean in terms of the way this Scandinavian chap's going to be able to come in and take over. So you just hope it gets sorted. And obviously I'm biased because I want my mate to be happy and I want my mate to be successful. And I think the two of them have done brilliantly, and they're due a good hand, to be honest.
If anyone's due a good hand, it's them, isn't it? After what they've achieved under but pretty much ridiculous circumstances for last 2-3 seasons. Lee Bowyer, Johnny Jackson, the great managerial pair, deserve huge credit for what they've done there. Crew, a little word on them. Obviously, disappointment opening day, but I don't think there'll be anyone panicking there. They played good football. They created a few good chances. They're against the Charlton side, like you say, got a lot of quality. I think David Artell will be urging his players to be far more clinical when they get their opportunities. But they're not a side I'm worried about so much this season. I think they'll grow well into this division as the season goes on. Right. We will not be tempted to look at the league table after one game. I do find it strange when people bring that up. But let's march straight down into League Two.
League Two.
And in League Two, there were quite a few surprises, I'd argue, looking at some of the results. The first one, we'll say, is obviously Bolton losing at home to Forest Green. Now, whether that's actually a huge surprise or not, given the way that we've seen Bolton needing time to adapt in the opening couple of cup matches, I'm not so sure. They'll feel disappointed, though, that they're not yet creating the chances or getting the opportunities to give Owendahl the goals that he will undoubtedly get if Ian Evatt plays the system he did at Barrow. But it's a big rebuild, Ed, isn't it? And it's taking a bit more time than perhaps we suggested in our pre-season previews.
Yeah, I think it's worth remembering this is game 1 of 46. There's still so much of the season left, and Bolton have had a massive squad overhaul. They've got a manager in. There's no issues with the style that Ian Evatt provides. We know that. We saw that with Barrow last season. It is going to take a bit of time when you consider them with the people they brought in. And I saw there was quite a bit of criticism of Anthony Sarcevic yesterday after the game. He is a brilliant player. If you remember what he did at Plymouth last season, he's fantastic. Maybe he's not getting up to the level you want yet, but trust me, over the course of the campaign, he absolutely will, and you will see that. I think Bolton could be in for a bit of a shaky start because of the adaptation and the expectation on them as well, that they are expected by a lot of people to go and win this league. To be honest, promotion's the ultimate target. I think second or third should not be too great of an issue for them. And I definitely think over the course of the campaign, when that system works right and they get the football that they should be playing, they should easily do that.
Yeah, no, indeed. They remind me slightly. Do you remember when Blackburn came down to League One? I think they lost the first couple of games and everyone was doom and gloom. It takes time. It takes a bit of time to adapt. Obviously, they did that and they ended up going up. It's going to be a difficult season for Bolton in terms of it's not going to be a walk in the park, but they do have, I think, the quality in that team to have a good campaign. Forest Green, though, they'll be delighted. Mm-hmm. I think they'll be most delighted with a clean sheet because, they defensively were a bit worrying at the end of last season.
Yeah, that was the big issue. Well, there were two main issues we found with Forest Green last year. One was the goalkeeper, which looks like it's been sorted. I think Luke McGee's a great addition. He'll be fantastic for them. It's a relatively new look backline as well, with Taylor Moore in the middle of that back three, which looks really great. The main issue, I think, for Forest Green, last year was goal scoring. You still look at who was replacing Christian Deutsch's goals. And they brought in Jamil Matt, who's not really a goal scorer. He's a focal point. But when you've got him and then Aaron Collins playing off him with his moving off the ball, that's a great pair to have. And then you've got the centre of midfield, which is easily Forest Green's best part. People like Ebu Adams and Carl Winchester with Dan Sweeney in there as well. That is a quality midfield trio. And I think we'll show that over the course of the campaign.
Yeah, great finish from Carl Winchester. Like a daisy cut, it's like when you're a kid and you punt one of those plastic footballs when you're playing in the garden and it just sizzles along the ground and it hits the post and goes in. The keeper, no chance with that one. So, good result for them on the opening day. A good result for Morecambe as well, going to Cheltenham and beating them 2-1. Bit of a smash and grab. I'll have a match report from our Morecambe correspondent on our website a bit later today on that. And yeah, absolutely brilliant result for the Shrimps. They've gone there after a season where they have struggled. It's fair to say. I've seen a club icon leave in Jim Bentley and gone to a team that basically don't concede goals and don't lose at home and beaten them 2-1. Sam, that's you can't ask for more than that really on opening day of the new season.
Yeah, maybe when you look how good Cheltenham's home record was last season, and then you think of what happened in that final game of the season, maybe that on reflection would have been a good time to go there opening day of the season when some of those wounds are still quite raw for Cheltenham, and they're trying to obviously drip feed some new signings into the lineup. So I was very surprised. It's a bit of a coupon buster, obviously, but you look at the quality of the goals, the winning goal in particular from Carlos Mendes Gomez. I think he has shown in flashes previously that he could be a real talent. So he's one to keep an eye on. But I like the business as well. I know Diego Raga was there previously, I believe. He looked to have a fantastic game in the middle of the pitch yesterday. And I was surprised to see that Pringle's gone there. Very good little technical midfield player. I think he'll prove to be a really good addition. And I think you go into every League Two campaign, and maybe it's snobbery a little bit, but you look at the size of the club. I remember doing this in 2012-13 when I was still playing. You expect to beat Morecambe at that level. Well, under Jim Bentley, it was never easy. And I think Derek Adams is a proven manager in the lower leagues. I nearly went and worked for him in Scotland, and he's held in high regard up there. And I think they'll defy the odds again this season and stay up. But great opening day victory. But Cheltenham, I think I tipped them certainly for promotion when we were doing it a few weeks ago. Liam Sercombe, a lad I know really well. I think I was surprised. I thought he could maybe nick a League One move still at his age, Liam. So he's a proven goal scorer in the right side from midfield. Obviously, had great success at League Two level before. And Williams, scored in the playoff final for Northampton. And I was really surprised at some of the lads they allowed to leave. I'm not sure exactly what's gone on at Northampton, but that's certainly Cheltenham's gain. He'll get goals undoubtedly for them. So I still make Michael Duff's side strong contenders to go up, but they'll have to get over, that mauling at the hands of Northampton in the playoffs.
No, I agree. It's always difficult when you lose a playoff campaign to bounce back, especially in the manner that they did as well. Cambridge, great start to the season. I wasn't that keen on Cambridge, in honesty, going into the season. I think Bond has done an excellent job as manager. And Carlisle, though, Ed, worrying defensive signs because they've conceded 3 in each of their first 3 games of the season already.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's similar in some ways with Bolton, I think. You've got to remember that Carlisle, I don't think anyone in the whole EFL has had a bigger squad overhaul than them. I remember reading that I think 19% of last season's squad's still there from last season. So it's a massive squad overhaul, and I don't think there's any real issues with Chris Beach. He showed last season he's a good manager who can get a good system in. There is concern, of course. Conceding 9 in 3 games is never encouraging, but we are still in the very early parts of the season, and there is a long, long way to go. So I wouldn't be too panicked about it yet, certainly.
No, indeed not, and a great win for Cambridge. They'll be happy. They've looked actually quite good in the opening few games. My reservations seem unfounded, actually.
I went to watch. I managed to get to the test event they had against Fulham under-21s on Tuesday, and Cambridge's squad. That's one that I think is going to surprise quite a lot of people this season. It's that front two for me of Ironside and Paul Mullen who complement each other so well. Ironside's leap is ridiculous. He's a big guy anyway, but he's so good in the air. Paul Mullen's a quality finisher, and then you've got someone like Carl Noyle, or I think Cambridge have now called him Trent Alexander-Noyle after his performance yesterday, playing the crosses in the right-hand side, and you've got Harrison Duncan, Luke Hannock on the left. It's actually a really solid outfit from front to back, and they could surprise a few people this season.
They could indeed. They've started really well. Colchester drew 0-0 with Bradford. Not a surprise at all, really, that this one was a low-scoring, no-scoring game, but not a huge amount of chances. Cancelled each other out when they played each other last season. Done so again yesterday. Giovanni Brown, I hope he has a good season. I think Steve Ball's giving him more opportunities than he got last year. He was sent out obviously on loan to Forest Green. We know what a good player he is. Very skillful. Did one move which we saw in the highlights where he just sort of turned his defender inside out and was unlucky not to set up a colleague for a goal. So they'll be happy, I think, going to Valley Parade on the opening day and getting a point. Stevenage went to Barrow. Long old journey that, coming back with a point. They had to be rescued from the spot by Effiong, I think. Barrow, I heard the comments of the manager afterwards, David Dunn. I mean, he's just pleased to get the first point on the board. Disappointed perhaps they didn't take more of the chances because I think they had the better of them over the 90 minutes. But welcome to the Football League, and a lovely message. I think, was it Morecambe put a plane up in the air saying,
"Yep,
welcome to the Football League." That's a nice touch. So I'd like to see things like that. Mansfield and Tranmere, this was an interesting one. It finished 0-0, but if you look at the comments and the fans talking about the game, Tranmere were by far the poorer side in this match. Mansfield dominated a lot of the play. Corey O'Keefe, who we said would be their best player this season, and indeed I thought was their best signing. He was excellent from all accounts. Carl Fairbrother, who's our Mansfield sort of correspondent, I'd say, gives us a lot of talk and information about the Stags. He was very happy. Thought that Jordan Barry, and Crewe fans will not be shocked here, was wasteful with his opportunities yesterday. Obviously coming in at the last minute because Danny Rhodes got a tight hamstring in the warm-up, so that's always a loss. But they've got plenty of firepower, plenty of players that will score them goals, and a good performance despite the result on the opening day of the season. So let's hope that Mansfield do settle down and have a better campaign. They've definitely got the players to do so. I would say Tranmere probably can afford to be a bit more ambitious than they were yesterday. They played like a 4-4-1-1, and Vaughan was very isolated. I think they've got enough in that squad to push on a bit and be a bit more attack-minded. Obviously, Morgan Ferry picking up a knock, as did Corey Beckett-Taylor, I think, in the last game. So hopefully those guys aren't out for too long because they're important players in that team. Scunthorpe and Newport, they played out a 1-1 draw. Scunthorpe will be pleased. And I saw, Ed, you were very impressed with the goal scored by Mr. Loft in this one.
Yeah, Ryan Loft, if I remember right, was at Carlisle last season, and he didn't particularly ever get going, but I think he's got 2 in his last 3 now, and it's kind of a fresh start for him, and particularly Scunthorpe. We've said before that Scunthorpe's best area is their front line. The potential to have Kevin Van Veen, Abu Issa and Alex Gilliard up top is a great connection. Kevin Van Veen, I believe, is out till Christmas with an injury, and that's giving Ryan Loft the chance to have a go up top, and he's reaping the rewards so far, so it's really good to see.
Yeah, young side that Scunthorpe are going to have to put out this season. So a bit of concern over whether they'll be able to sort of stand up to sides like Newport, but a good result for them. Newport will be slightly disappointed, I think, given that they took the lead, that they didn't hold on for more. Sam, Southend. I don't like to, we put them bottom in our pre-season predictions, as did I think a lot of other people, and it's not because we don't like the manager who's been brought in. He comes in with high ratings, great credibility, but the fact they're under a transfer embargo, they're basically playing a youth team. The senior players they have got are out injured, and yesterday their defence was just terrible again. And this is the story of last season. At the moment, it hasn't improved one bit.
No, and on the face of it, when they saw those fixtures come out, even the most diehard Southend supporter would have feared the worst, I think. Really up against it, against a team with such momentum and such spirit coming into their first EFL game I think it is their first EFL game, isn't it? Well, certainly ever. So, we're up against it from the off. And, I kind of saw a little bit of a plan at times last season under Sol Campbell. They're certainly trying to play out from the back. And there was a period when I actually kind of bought into what Sol Campbell was trying to do. And obviously they had better players last year as well, further forward, which always gives you an opportunity. But, I mean, coming into this season, you start having to question the owner's involvement. Is it time for him to step aside and let someone have another go? He's always very amenable when I've spoken to him, and he comes on and he says the right things, but ultimately the place is on its knees, and it feels like the manager being plucked from the non-league is being thrown under the bus a little bit with this starting lineup you look at from yesterday. But on the flip side, obviously brilliant for Harrogate, and I know their manager a little bit socially. We've got a mutual friend, and he's going to win a lot of admirers this year. He's very measured. I think he's very honest. I think he's very determined, Simon Weaver, and they would have really enjoyed that opening day win despite Southend's troubles. And I'm sure that journey back up the M1 yesterday, he probably afforded the lads a couple of drinks, because that's a great way to start life in the EFL. And we've seen it in the last few seasons. That jump is getting smaller and smaller, I think, from the National League into League Two. I think that's probably the smallest gap until you get from the Championship to the Premier League. So I expect them to be fine. And Barrow, I would probably suggest the same, although it might be a little bit tougher considering they've had the change of manager.
I agree with everything you've just said. Yeah, absolutely. Really, really well done to Harrogate for the result. But from my perspective, having been a guy who's watched Southend at a much higher level than this, and just seen them cascading down the leagues, and really in the last two seasons, you can't blame the young players. I think it's easy to have anger towards the playing staff when they're not producing any sort of results and the performances are poor. I mean, that one goal which was gone a bit viral on social media, where Hobson was tackled. I mean, yes, whether the ref or should have allowed it or not, but it was just the lacklustre reaction. I think they kind of lost a bit of heart when they went down, and it's going to happen with young players. And what I don't want to see is these young players who could potentially have good careers have their confidence destroyed before they've even got going. And it's a difficult situation for Mark Moseley right now. I just hope that they get the embargo lifted and can bring in a few senior heads to help them out, because boy, they are going to need it. Oldham lost at home in the last minute, exasperating stuff, to Leyton Orient. Danny Johnson, a player who's looking really sharp actually, came in at the end of last season, and I wasn't hugely impressed with him, but the last couple of games he scored some good goals. Nice movement to get the winner yesterday, so Leyton Orient off to a very positive start. Port Vale, not surprised at all that they got a 2-0 home win over Crawley. Nothing against Crawley at all, but I think Port Vale are expected to be right up this season, because they've recruited well. They're very stable. They had good form, and they're just a club at the moment on the up, with new owners who have done a superb job, Ed, of turning it around in such a short space of time.
Yeah, we spoke last season about how basically in the summer they'd already won the battle, really, with Smurthwaite moving out and the Shanahan's coming in, and we kind of thought they'd have an okay season. They had an absolutely fantastic season, being a point outside the playoffs, and then selflessly voting to call it the campaign as well. And we think that, especially after all these players have basically signed new deals, they want to stay on under Janoski, and then they brought in a lot of quality people like Fitzpatrick and Mills to add more depth to the back line. People like Devante Rodney up top, who was really good yesterday, to go alongside Theo Robinson as another striker option. There's no reason why, after being so close to the playoffs last year, they couldn't kick on and maybe get top 3 this year.
No, very good performance. Devante Rodney, fans love him already.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he looks athletic, strong, quick. Cullen, if he can stay fit, we know he's a good player at this level. I mean, he was superb in his time at Blackpool. Just been really unfortunate with injuries over the last few years, and a brace for him yesterday. We all love Tom Pope, but they were too reliant on him in the back end of the season before last. He was their only guy who was going to score. Now they've seemed to have fixed that problem. They've got goals from all areas. They've got David Amu to come back into this side as well.
Yep. And they brought in Harry McCurdy as well, which is a bit of an interesting one. He's got so much talent, but you can't ignore the attitude issues that were there at Carlisle. I'm hopeful it'll work, but we'll have to wait and see with that.
I think you room him with Leon Legg and he'll sort it out. I think that's a good plan. But he's a talented player, but one of those frustrating ones for managers who, like we saw with Willem Tomlinson actually, who left Mansfield, I think last week, breaking the manager's trust, and the manager just said, no, you're not having it. We're not having this disrupt us. And I think managers, when you've got a small squad, you're not going to want players in there that can disrupt things. So Harry McCurdy's got to improve that side of his game, but I think he's been given a new chance, another chance, you should say, at Port Vale by John Askey, and I hope he takes it because he's undoubtedly talented. Salford and Exeter, this was always going to be an interesting one because you've got Salford, who have probably got one of the best squads on paper versus last season's playoff finalists, and it finished 2-2, and Salford started the better, and then Exeter really came into it, Sam. Always difficult because Exeter lose playoff finals at Wembley, faster than my kids outgrow their shoes, and yet, they will be, I think, quite pleased with going and getting a point at Salford on the opening day of the campaign.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you just have to think of continuity here with Exeter. The same manager, a lot of the same players. They've been able to keep hold of, obviously, the lion's share of their squad. Again, really good result. And Matt J on the score sheet. And then yet another young academy product getting the other goal, Randall. So just keep churning them out season after season. They must have one of the most productive academies in the country, outside the top flight. And Matt J actually made his debut alongside me, and I was that bad on that day that I had to go and apologise to young Matt J and hope and pray that he'd go on and it wouldn't be scarred for life. So I'm always thrilled when he pops up with a goal. And actually, if you look at the two Salford goals from yesterday, very fortuitous. The first one's an own goal, really. Hendo gets a flick, but it deflects off Mercado, I think, into the net. And Ashley Hunter's goal was very fortunate as well, kind of shanked his finish into the deck and it loops over the goalkeeper. But yeah, I mean, Salford have done some brilliant business. I've always fancied Ashley Hunter's going to go on and have a good career. To get him on a permanent's good. And Ian Henderson obviously just gets better and better with age. So they're rightly so one of the favourites, but I wouldn't discount Exeter, considering they've kept hold of that squad and they've added a bit more experience with Mercado to help those, wonderful young players like Collins, and obviously Dean, who got the goal yesterday. So yeah, I expect both of those two teams to be comfortably in the top 7. And it's just whether they're going to have the consistency, I suppose, to be automatic contenders. But yeah, two of the heavyweights of the division, I would say, moving forward, sharing the spoils yesterday.
Yeah, next they're getting a big windfall from their academy sell-on, with I think 15% of the sell-on fee, $3.5 million roughly, coming in from the sale of Ollie Watkins going to.
Yeah, as good as he was, Ollie. He was on loan at Weston-super-Mare the year I spent at Exeter. So he used to train with us during the week and obviously went off. And I think that illustrates how kind of Paul Tisdale used to run his ship there, but also the attitude of the young players. And Ollie is a great example. I think the young lads from down there, you talk about Matt Grimes and Liam Sercombe, people like that, always good boys, very down to earth. They've been schooled superbly, not only by Tisdale, but within that academy. And they had Steve Perryman as well walking around the training ground. I mean, there's not many better teachers, I wouldn't say, in the lower divisions over the last few years to have someone of that calibre teaching these young players, I think, how to conduct yourself off the pitch as well as, good habits on it. So Ollie is a lovely lad. He's been a brilliant player in the Championship and thoroughly deserves it. And he's as you say, a real success story. And let's hope that money can be reinvested in Taylor's squad, but also reinvested off the pitch to continue the great work that they're doing in the academy.
Indeed, absolutely agree with that. Randall Williams, of course, basically been said he's leaving. They've had 3 or 4 clubs make formal bids for him now, so not a surprise. Whether and how they replace him, I think they'll replace him with probably the academy products that they keep producing, because boy, they have some great players coming through, and that's a luxury, because if you do have a good academy, selling your stars is not always such a worry. I think, is it Key, the guy that they've got coming through who's on the right hand side, Josh Key? He's played really well in pre-season. And if you want to put someone in there who's going to carry on doing some good work down the right, just get him from the academy, and love to see it. Final game we're going to talk about, Walsall beating Grimsby. I wasn't surprised about this at all, because of course we know Walsall have a good manager, Darryl Clark, continuity of squad. Their right side that we were concerned about, Ed, was sorted out when they signed Hayden White and Osadebe coming in from Macclesfield. And Hayden White, of course, had issues with a broken leg actually at Mansfield last season, but back fit to give a bit of competition with Cameron Norman down at right back. Grimsby didn't have a pre-season, and that was the big issue in this second half yesterday. Their legs went as the game went on, and they struggled to contain a pretty strong Walsall side. But prior to that, they matched them well. So positives for both of these clubs in the opening day of the season.
Yeah, definitely. With Walsall, it's like you said. Well, I think the big issue I had with Walsall that stopped me considering them a top side was I wanted a goalkeeper to compete with Liam Roberts. I wanted a good quality right back in, a good quality right winger, and they signed all 3 on the same day, a couple of days before the League Cup games last week, I think it was. I love Osadebe. I think he'd be a great addition to them. Hopefully that means we can start to see Josh Gordon playing up front more, because that's where he's best. And I think alongside Adebayo, you've got a very good front line there that really complement each other really well, with Keenan Lavery as an alternative. That's a great thing. Kinsella and Bates is an excellent midfield pair. We know how good Wes McDonald was last year. He's just carrying on as before. I mentioned about Cameron Cockrell-Molle, who was playing at left back, I think, today. Decent addition to them. They've also got George Nursing as well, who's in on loan from Bristol City. Whether those two take up the spot that Cameron Pring did, I'm hopeful about that, but that'll be good to see. But generally, Walsall, solid side, and I think they could have a really good season.
Yeah, I think they will. I think that their fans, who were expecting or hoping that they can nick a top 7 finish, that's not unfounded. They've got a good manager, settled squad, and now they've got a bit more depth. It's going to be. I'd be surprised if they weren't better, at least, than last season.
Definitely, I agree with that.
Ian Holloway still needs some experience, I reckon, and he's going to try and sign it, I think, before the end of the window. But yeah, like I said, didn't have a pre-season. I was very impressed with them against Harrogate in the EFL Trophy. They played some great young players who've got a lot of pace, a little bit raw, as you'd expect from youngsters. Iwara Edwards, I think he's on loan from Bristol City. He looks really good, very pacey. Obviously, it's Lewis Boyd, only 15 and scoring a scorcher in the EFL Trophy to become a record breaker at the club. Well done to him. Really good to see that. But actually, Joey Hope at left back was good. Better going forward than defensively. I think they're going to lean heavily at times on people like Danny Rose and Luke Waterfall, but I think it's Iden and Oman were good at centre back yesterday, as they were against Harrogate. So there's some positive signs, but I think a little bit more depth needed for Grimsby, and they'll need to get their fitness levels up. But not too shabby performance yesterday, despite the fact that they were against a strong Walsall team. So that's it. That's opening day done and dusted in League 1 and 2. Really hope you've enjoyed listening to our podcast this morning. Like I say, if you can support us by spreading the word, giving it a retweet, becoming a patron, very much all appreciated. Just leaves me to thank our guest, Sam Parkin. Sam, lovely to have you back on.
James, thanks for having me anytime, and hope you enjoyed the season, and I hope you're back in the stadiums soon, and we can all enjoy it as spectators, because having watched a lot of the action yesterday it's really lacking in something at the moment. Yes, there was some quality performances and quality games and quality goals, but we're missing that interaction with the supporters, and yeah, it's a little bit sad not hearing that roar of the crowd and seeing teams hanging on in the last few moments, being cheered on by their punters, and teams getting over the line with that added support from the stand. So hopefully it's not too far away.
Yeah, especially financially as well. Actually, I think the longer this goes on, the more worries and concerns everyone will have over the sustainability of some of the clubs at this level. So really hope things improve and we can have stadiums full again soon. Ed, as always, cheers for coming on, mate, and thank you for your insightful opinion.
Pleasure as always. Love doing it. Great to be back.
And that just leaves me to say to everyone, enjoy your weekends, what's left of them. And we'll be back next week for another pod. So see you then. Goodbye.